If I could have your attention and get back into your seats. So I have brought some books that I have written, and there are elements in my books that touch on the topic we are talking about here. If you are interested in any of my books, you can take a copy. It is not going to cost you anything. It is not going to benefit me financially, I should say. But if you do take a copy, you can give an offering to the church, and whatever you think you should do, give it as an offering to Loma Linda University Church. And so you do not need, if you take a book, you don't need to talk to me about it. Just take the book and walk away. Okay, we are continuing our textual journey through chapters 2 and 3 of Daniel. And of course, quite several of you have talked to me about other details that we are skipping. And yes, we are not doing what we should be doing to biblical texts, and that is to allow the text to talk itself empty. That is what good exegesis will do, to allow a text to talk itself empty. But now to part 2. King Nebuchadnezzar made a golden statue whose height was 60 cubits and whose width was 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent for the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to assemble and come to the dedication of the statue that the King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So what are we seeing here? It's sort of right off if we read in from chapter 2 into chapter 3. There is a continuity, isn't there? There was a statue in the dream. There was a statue, head of gold, silver, bronze, iron and clay. And now what do we have here? We have a statue all of gold. So there is then right away a sense of something that seems reactive to the dream, a kind of commentary on the dream or a contrast to the message in the dream. And I have fewer illustrations in the art world of the second chapter, but I have one that is quite good. So here is what I am proposing, and you can put your own words to it, that there is a kind of protest element, almost like a denial, almost like an attempt to defeat the message of the dream. Yes, almost like an act of defiance against the message of the dream. And the message of the dream said that human beings are finite and mortal. That's the existential message. And the political message is what? That nations come and go. Don't get too grandiose ideas about your nation, because nations come and go. They are also finite. There are the transitoriness, the transience of such realities. But Nebuchadnezzar does not like that. So there is a kind of defiant thing there. So let's go back to Oppenheim's book on the Assyrian dream book, and we saw these 3 elements already: the reporting of one's dream to another person. We needed some help on that one, but Daniel did that. The interpreting of an enigmatic dream by that person, we have done that too. But now it seems we are here in that territory. The dispelling or removing of the evil consequences of such a dream by magic means, that he seems to want to create a kind of corrective there. I think we sense that, and then that we are in this then in the territory of customs that are available to us in the culture of that time, that those elements that we are just sort of categorizing that part. Now, there is also a certain timelessness to this dream. King Nebuchadnezzar made a golden statue, and so did many others. There is no end to it. Now, we have not seen Nebuchadnezzar's statue. I have been in Babylon. I have also been in Ur of the Chaldees, and I have seen that ziggurat in Ur. And so, I have a little bit of a sense of that. But here, many of you have been in Rome, and you have seen the column of Trajan. And that column is as high as the one in Nebuchadnezzar's story. It's 30 meters high, I think, just about that height. And because the one in Nebuchadnezzar's statue that he put up there in Daniel chapter 3 was almost 30 meters high or something. So here is the column of Trajan in Rome, and originally Trajan was standing on top of that column, and Trajan is a 2nd century Roman emperor. He is the one who made the Roman Empire the largest it ever was. And then, it kind of peaked during the days of Trajan. He was from Spain. Did you know that? He was from the area outside of Seville in Spain. That generation, or that line, that family line of emperors. And now on the top of Trajan's column, there is Peter, because the Catholic Church thought, well, that's a really nice column. We can do something with that. So we don't have Trajan there anymore. We have Peter. I'm not going to pursue that and leave that. Now here we are in Istanbul. So here we are in Istanbul, so that's a couple of 100 years after the time of Trajan. Rome is fading as the capital of the Roman Empire, and there is a new capital built on the Bosporus, and now we call it Istanbul. And in Istanbul, there was this huge column that's still there. You can still see it. They call it Chamberlitas, or the column of Constantine. So when he inaugurated the eastern capital, Constantinople, they also had that. They had also erected this column, and it is enormous. It has been diminished by earthquakes, and then this is probably somewhat how the image of Constantine looked. It was his whole body, the whole person standing on top of this column. And here you can see it some time ago. And here is the foot. And next to it is an ad for Adidas running shoes. And just to show the contrast, just to show the size of the foot that was standing there, that was part of Constantine's image. So I'm just saying that this idea of creating images of this kind, and the idea of projecting to be more than we are legitimately as human beings, as nations, that temptation is a staple of human reality. You see it then in Babylon, you see it in Trajan's time, you see it in Constantine's time, and lo and behold, we see it again and again all the way to our time. So let's say that what we see here then is a protest and an act of defiance on the part of Nebuchadnezzar. I have a sense, just a guess, I'm not sure about this. It's just a little bit of a suspicion I have had reading this text, that maybe it wasn't just Nebuchadnezzar who said, well, that is a very bad message. let's do something about it. Let's try to negate it. Let's try to get rid of it. That the king thought so. It could be that his advisors thought, you can do something about that. We can help you. In that case, it would be a kind of grievance, a retaliation almost, and maybe even a kind of entrapment initiated by those who could not interpret the dream, those who felt disadvantaged and maybe had felt upstaged by those immigrants, those foreigners who those Australians who came to America, whatever. And so now that interpretation is certainly relevant for chapter 6, in where you have the story of Daniel in the lion's den. But maybe there is a hint of it here too. So here is an illustration by a Dutch artist from 16th century that I will use to sort of feed our imagination a little bit. So the satraps, the prefects, and here there is a stylistic element. There is a kind of a cadence here, a kind of Martin Luther King type of cadence where you lead a person along and you make them sort of almost sway to the sentences, to the words, as it were. And that is true both for the officials that are mentioned and for the musical instruments. So the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers and justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces assembled, and then in parentheses, that's my word, they assembled, and I say they assembled enthusiastically, but that isn't in the text. I am just inferring that maybe they did that. This is going to be a great day for the dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. When they were standing before the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had set up, the herald proclaimed aloud. And here in my illustration, you have the whole thing here. You have the people with the musical instrument. You have lots of people here, dignitaries. You have the statue here, and then you have a fire there in the corner. You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of, and here again we go a certain mantra that will be repeated at least twice, maybe 3 times in this chapter. When you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, drum, and entire musical ensemble, you are to fall down and worship the golden statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. So I'm proposing, and we have already sort of established a case for that, that the golden statue here is also meant as a description of reality in competition with the statue revealed in the dream. So those are competing images, competing representations of reality. So we're saying here the statue in Nebuchadnezzar's dream was a representation of reality. It drove home the limits of personal greatness, like mortality, and national greatness, that is the after you. And it was a kind of reality therapy because the self-aggrandizing tendencies of humans, personally and nationally, need some time to get sort of reality orientation, you might say. And then Nebuchadnezzar's golden statue then is a competing representation of reality. And to that competing reality, then the acquiescence is crucial for some reason. He really needs to have a buy-in. It is almost as though you think you can change reality by majority vote. Let's just make sure everyone supports it, and it will be so. Or by public acclaim. If we have enough people support it, and if we have no one against it, or apparently no one against it, maybe it will be so. You can create another narrative. That is what we are hinting at here. So this again, then, because it is always mentioned here that it was a golden statue, and it is then the contrast that interests us. And then there is this choreography of compliance. Now, if we say this is an inaugural event, and if we say that it plays on elements that most people find dear, the greatness of their ruler, the greatness of their country, if you can play on those sentiments, you can in some ways achieve buy-in more easily. And here the choreography is quite spectacular. It's quite nice. And I thought, I think I saw Virgil Nilsson here. Are you here, Virgil? Yeah, I thought I saw you, and I thought I should ask you to bring your instrument and play up a little here to get us sort of in the mood to kind of help us to imagine. But I thought, well, we'll do that next time. And just to see how you can sway people, you can create moods, states of mind by using these measures. And so again, you have this mantra: the horn, the pipe, the lyre, trigon, harp, drum, and entire musical instruments, same wording several times. All the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the golden statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So there was buy-in, there was acquiescence, as it were, and there doesn't seem to have been much two ways about it. So let's do this quiz. What do you think? Most of the people did not support it, but they did not dare to show it. You think that is a good way of explaining it? Most of the people did not support it, but they just went along. I'll give you another one. I'm not going to do show of hands, but I would love to do that. Most of the people supported the idea of personal and national greatness. Most of the people supported the idea of having a Nebuchadnezzar figure who had done all these wonderful things. And the national greatness too. Most of the people supported that. Would you rather have two or one? What do you think is most representative here? Some were against it, but they didn't think it made any difference. Who cares? No big deal. Let's just, get this over with. Okay, I have a fourth one. A few, almost no one, was 100% against it. I have three that seem to meet that. So the choreography of compliance is quite interesting. Here is a picture that might help our imagination a little bit. Now, this is the most spectacularly unworthy world leader that you have ever seen, certainly in the last hundreds of years. But the buy-in is spectacular. The sort of acquiescence, it's not, yes, there was force then too. There was a culture of fear. There was. Let's not deny it. But most of it wasn't coerced. And when the Nazis, they had an event every September in the city of Nuremberg in Germany, starting in 1930, early 1930. Maybe 1 million people showed up for it. And the choreography of those events was just amazing. There have been movies made, Leni Riefenstahl movies, showing exactly how you managed to sell this illusion of personal greatness and national greatness. the way they did at that time. It is really something. And there is an echo in our time then of what happened in ancient times. So here I am saying then, or suggesting, that in this power structure, in this buy-in that he achieves here, there are helpers, there are enablers, there are collaborators, there are sycophants, and there are willing enforcers, people who are willing to help you to make sure that you get buy-in, everyone coming on board. And if you find a straddler here and there, we will deal with them too. Accordingly, at this time, certain Chaldeans came forward and denounced the Jews. Here you go. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever." This is flattery. I see them as the sort of sycophants that the only thing they know how to do is to praise the person, whatever his merits were. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears, and here again you go, here is that musical instrument mantra. We almost don't need Virgil to play it for us because it is there textually, delivered to us textually in a way. Everyone who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, drum, and the entire musical ensemble shall fall down and worship the golden statue, and whoever does not fall down and worship shall be thrown into a fire of blazing fire. This is the spies and the enforcers quoting back to Nebuchadnezzar the rules of the day to make sure he delivers, as it were. In some ways, maybe they are entrapping him too. So there are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These pay no heed to you, O king. They do not serve your gods, and they do not worship the golden statue that you have set up. They do not accept your version of reality. They do not accept your competing version of reality. You had that dream. That was a representation of reality. And now we have a competing representation of reality. And those people do not acquiesce or do not accept that. And here, our artist, I have highlighted some, and some of you can see it there. But those of you can see it there. You see now they are rounding up these three dissidents here in the market, in the marketplace. There are people who are willing to bring about compliance and sort of smoke out those dissidents, as it were. And this picture is actually found in my Revelation commentary. I couldn't resist it. This is a picture from a shipyard in Hamburg, where you see all these people honoring Hitler, all of them doing that Hitler greeting. And some of you have seen the picture before, and you see, you see him? See that guy? There is some uncertainty about his identity. There are two candidates who that was. One of them had a Jewish girlfriend. But anyway, he seems to be saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to acquiesce or to buy in. So anyway, we read on. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought in. At least he didn't report them right away. He gave them a sort of hearing, a second chance. It's amazing. So they brought the men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods and you do not worship the golden statue that I have set up?" There is something to be said for that. That yes, he is angry as can be, but he he has them brought in, and he asks them, was it true? There was a certain, are you in real violation, aren't you? And listen to the next one. It is really, really quite interesting. Now, if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, drum, an entire musical ensemble to fall down and worship the statue that I have made, well and good. That you have a second chance now, to see it. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire, and who is the God that will deliver you out of my hands? Here I am the final arbiter of human destiny, as it were. And yes, that is somewhat more than human authorities should, take it upon themselves to do. So here, just to add this up, Nebuchadnezzar is a ruler who expects submission. And there are people who submit. They are followers, they are helpers, they are collaborators, sycophants, and also informants. They are all there. Are they all there? I think they're all there. That is, those just putting modern words to it. And then as a kind of backup plan, there is fear. There is the element of coercion that will ensure those who dissent. I do think that this book by Timothy Snyder, who is an expert on totalitarian systems in the 20th century, deserves a rereading. And yes, he is also a voice in the public square today. So let that be as it may. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to present a defense to you in this matter. Now, just to stop the statement there, do you sense that they are answering in a reverential way, or are they a little bit rude, a little bit sort of put off by the proposition that he is putting before them? He has said, if you do this, it's fine. And then they say, it is a bit curt. It's a bit curt. And let's read the rest and then see if we can make another comment on it. So the way of translating that King James translates is a little different. Maybe I think the King James is actually a little better here. But if our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace of blazing fire and out of your hand, O King, let him deliver us. If he can do it, let him do it. The other way of translating it is, he can do it. The question is, will he? That is the other side. It's not a question of whether he's able. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your alternative representation of reality. We will not acquiesce to that way of representing human life, the aggrandizement on a personal level and the aggrandizement of a national level. We will not serve your gods, and we will not worship the golden statue that you have set up. And here you can see the dissident then. And what's the sort of stance of the dissident, of the dissenter here? It's unconditional. If God does it, very nice. If he doesn't matter. We are not going to acquiesce. We are not going to sort of give in to that thing. And that text, of course, has inspired many people, many prisoners of conscience through the years have taken that as their kind of, that's how we are going to do it. We will do what they call the Hebrew worthies, how they responded there. So let's circle that one and have that as a big item here. But there is also this thing that these three friends of Daniel, they participated with Daniel in getting to know the message of the dream, didn't they? Daniel went home, he assembled his friends, his believing community, and together they prayed, and together they were illuminated. So when he tells the king, there's nothing to talk about here, because you know what we know. We are in the know on this one about that other representation of reality. And you are in violation of that representation of reality. So really, there isn't much to talk about. Well, the king can use anger as the last measure here. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was so filled with rage against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face was distorted. He ordered the furnace heated up 7 times more than was customary, and ordered some of the strongest guards in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, to throw them into the furnace of blazing fire. So the men were bound, still wearing their tunics, their trousers, their hats, and their garments, and they were thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. I have to love the way they do language here. This is really wonderful writing, and colorful, and engaging, and suitable for young and old. So now let me just tell you that Trump is a word in the English language, and whatever other inference you may use there is not intended here. I put that word coercion as trump card because of the way for its meaning in the English language. If you want to go beyond that, that's on you. Because the king's command was urgent and the furnace was so overheated, the raging flames killed the men who lifted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But the 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound, into the furnace of blazing fire. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up quickly. He said to his counselors, "Was it not 3 men that we threw bound into the fire?" They answered, "O king, true." They answered the king, "True, O king." He replied, "But I see 4 men." What a text. What a text. Was it not 3? 1, 2, 3. I see 4. What a text. Now, it doesn't mean that deliverance from the flame is the main message of this story, because we have already heard the 3 men say, if he doesn't deliver us, it doesn't change anything, But here we go. But I see 4 men unbound walking in the middle of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the 4th has the appearance of a god. I see 4 men. That is, again, something to circle. And here we have another ancient illustration of that scene. And then to my final slide, or with a little bit built into it. The title for this walkthrough is Think Nebuchadnezzar. And think Nebuchadnezzar now in order to get a better handle on our time. That is what we advertise. That's what I agreed with Dr. Ranselin that we would have as our topic here today. So let's read this text and make a few closing comments. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the door of the furnace of blazing fire and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their tunics were not harmed, and not even the smell of fire was on them. Isn't that quite beautifully described? Why he would do that. The sort of narration of this is pretty compelling, pretty entertaining. So here, think Nebuchadnezzar. And here are a couple of points here. First, from Daniel 2, there is a revealer, the sort of epistemological horizon, what there is to know. And the tendency that we have as human beings to distort reality in some ways, to aspire in this way and that way, so that the revealer comes into our world with a corrective to our distortions and our tendencies and whatever it could be. That's why I think we can look at our time and say we do not only have political disagreement in our time, we also have a spiritual problem. The problem of spiritual perceptions in regard to ourselves, in regard to maybe our country, and regard to policies or whatever it could be. So there is a revealer. And here, just to emphasize that, what does he reveal to us? And I said that there is the notion of revelation as information and revelation as illumination. What will happen hereafter and the thoughts of your head. You remember that? We saw the thoughts of your mind in chapter 2. You saw that? So what is that image that we see then going down to the feet of clay? The reminder of the human condition and the reminder also of the trajectory of history. And then we had the kingdom that is going to come without hands, without the use of power. And I contended that we only get the full benefit of that pertinent negative when we use the metaphorical meaning of hand. It wasn't just divine agency, it was divine method without power. That part. And then finally, learning to count. 1, 2, 3. I see 4. And in that funeral service that we had for my brother, who was older, he was my half brother, but he was very much a dear person to us and a very committed church person. And many in his family who weren't, are not as spiritually engaged as he was. I ended my comments about our brother, my brother, and their father, grandfather, great-grandfather. I ended my comments by saying that they should remember him as a person who had learned how to count to 4 in a world where most people are happy to count to 3 only. So, thank you for your attention. It was amazing that you would come out for this thing on a Sabbath afternoon, and we can do a little interaction.